spoilers for Obi-Wan Kenobi and all things Star Wars. So if you're not caught up on Star Wars, then best to skip this. Hello and welcome to another episode of The Script Department. I'm particularly happy to be doing this one today. My name is John, and today we're returning to the sands of Tatooine in search of yet another weary traveler in need of redemption. This time it's Jedi fugitive Obi-Wan Kenobi. Joining me on the hunt is my fellow Inquisitor Marcus. Do you like that, Marcus? Who will be helping me to dissect the sheer brilliance of Ewan McGregor's long-awaited return to the role. Before we get into all that, be sure to check out our website, thescriptdepartment.net, for all the latest stuff from our global network of screenwriters. Hit us up on social media. Links are in the description. We're on TikTok now as well, so please make sure to follow us there for daily content. And finally, if you haven't already, subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for The Script Department. Okay, Marcus, if I had said to you 10 years ago or even 15 years ago that one day Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen would reprise their roles for a TV series, no less, not even a big movie event at Christmas or anything, I'd have been laughed out of the building. And yet Here we are, 17 years and 8 days since the release of Revenge of the Sith, and the gang are all back together. Marcus, what are you feeling right now?
Joy. Just joy. Just so much joy. So much nostalgia. So much hope for the future. It is everything I wanted it to be and more. It just worked. I excited. I just feel excited. You know, it's very difficult to collect thoughts into this kind of thing. And if you remember when we were talking about Boba Fett, we were talking about the potential of this series coming up and things like that. And I was saying I wanted a kind of a stoic and, you know, in-depth character study and all this, that, and the other. And you know what? We got some of that in that first episode, and I am so happy that it was there. And then I'm happy that we're doing something else. And it was, there's some great structural stuff. The casting of young Leia is just joyful, even though I wouldn't want to spend any time with her because, my God, how irritating. I just feel so sorry for Obi-Wan Kenobi having to run around trying to curtail this child, which is trying to touch stuff. Anyway, the Inquisitors are just spectacular. It's great. What a treat to be back in that world and to see Obi-Wan Kenobi looking so wonderfully haggard.
And that's the word, treat. This is a real treat for Star Wars fans. You know, if you didn't like the prequels, this is like, I think, the prequel that you wanted. You know, and if you love the prequels like I do, this is just more of that. It's just more of the kind of the I guess the love letter to the original characters, Darth Vader and Alec Guinness's Ewan McGregor, or Alec Guinness's Obi-Wan Kenobi. Jesus,
Alec Guinness's Ewan McGregor. Right? I like that very much.
I'm just so excited. I have rarely been so excited for a TV series. I genuinely yesterday felt so like I even put on a VPN yesterday on my phone just to see if I could, if like in Australia or something, it had already come out, and I set it to as like Sydney, Australia on the VPN in order to like, could I get it earlier? Like I couldn't get this fast enough. Yeah. And I put on my PS5 headset and just watched it with the curtains closed and everything, and it was just glorious. It really was. And yeah, like you said, it's got that kind of very introspective Obi-Wan at the beginning. And it's got, you know, some of the aesthetics that you might have seen in the clone or in Attack of the Clones, and you know, the kind of the neon cityscape and things like that. It's got we're covering episode 1 and 2 here. It's got the you know, just good old kind of Empire stuff that you'd get in Rebels or Clone Wars and Rogue One, that kind of stuff. And it also, I feel like it ticked some of your boxes. I feel like it ticked some of my boxes. I bet you if we brought Brad in, it would tick some of the boxes that he had been hoping for as well. It does feel like they have managed to fit, Deborah Chow has managed to fit a lot into into what has been, not even 90 minutes at this point so far.
No. It's very carefully done. It's very, that you can feel the thought that's going into this. It really feels as though I think when you do something like this, I am and I'm not going to sully this Star Wars conversation by talking about Star Trek too much, because I know you won't like that. But there is
I love Star Trek, man. You go for it.
All right. There is an element of this when I was certainly in that first episode. There are two things that stuck out to me in terms of influences and in terms of things that I could feel in the mix here. First one was The Last Jedi, looking at Luke and the way he is. He literally at one point, Obi-Wan says, the time of the Jedi is over. And he, very, very much there. And I feel like there's a massive influence in terms of where that character is and kind of the retrospective mirroring going on there. I think it's a really interesting influence on the way he's performing it and playing it and the way they're writing it. But also, there's a big thing here for me going on that feels very much like Star Trek Picard. And this idea that you have somebody who has fallen from grace, one way or another, is a lot older than they were they were when we last saw them, and they're being called to adventure for one last fight to do something, and they have a purpose. There's a lot of parallels going on there. And so I was looking at it through that kind of mindset, and I was watching that first episode thinking, okay, we've got, I see what you're doing here, and then they did it differently. And that was the thing that I loved, is that then you get into episode 2 and you think, oh, okay, so this is going to be Obi-Wan searching for Leia. That makes sense. I'm so into that. I'm very up for watching an entire series of him trying to find her and track her down. It's the only reason why he would leave Tatooine to do that. Great, thumbs up from me. And then he finds her straight away, and I go, well, wow, okay. What are we doing for the rest of this then? And I love that they manage to set me up and go, this is familiar, this is what you're expecting, and then they manage to turn it on a dime and do something different with it and keep me guessing. And I think that is the besides Ewan McGregor's just wonderful performance, which was always going to be great, but it's still worth mentioning. Besides that, I think that's the real treat for me in watching these first 2 episodes, is the fact that it kept me guessing whilst doing something familiar. I'm so excited about that.
No, I'm glad you mentioned Picard, because I would be surprised if Picard hadn't been on the let's say the pitch deck for this show, if there was one. As in, Picard has proven it can work. It's proven that you can still find life in these characters long after we've finished their shows or their movies or whatever, and yeah, I'd be very surprised if that show hadn't some influence on Disney Plus's decision to make this at all, or go in the direction that I'm sure at some point it was a movie, and
I think it was a movie at some stage. I think that was the plan. Yeah, but certainly the thing but to swivel back around to The Last Jedi in terms of influences there, it's I found it really stark and really it really leapt out at me as going, they're doing some work here, and they're trying to kind of because I think the famous story goes that George Lucas said to Mark Hamill, just I think when they were getting towards the end of Return of the Jedi, would you be interested in returning to play an Obi-Wan character later in years and things like that? And oh, great, ha ha ha, very funny. I think he told it on a Parkinson episode, that story, and it's so interesting. What I loved about The Last Jedi is kind of obviously controversial, but what I loved about The Last Jedi was getting to see that character become that. And I think it's interesting to see that we find Obi-Wan in the same position that Luke is in and The Last Jedi, and we find him in a completely disillusioned state. He is gutted. He's made a massive mistake. So the parallels here, he's made a massive mistake. He's no longer using the Force, and he is isolated and hiding. And so there's the 3 major parallels there. The difference, I suppose, is that Obi-Wan is still open to using it. He calls out to Qui-Gon at one point there to try and ask for guidance and things like that. But I think that's intentional. It feels intentional. I think it's a really smart decision to draw those parallels in that first episode.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think let's talk about the premise, and then we'll circle back to Obi-Wan's character, because I think there's a lot to unpack there, and I'm glad you mentioned Qui-Gon as well there. So the premise, I think, my expectation for this, I think a lot of people's expectation from the trailer was that this was going to be something to do with Luke. Like maybe they've discovered Luke, maybe the Emperor or somebody knows that Anakin's children are out there, and so we're going to try and hunt them down. The assumption initially is, oh, the Inquisitors are looking for Kenobi. Maybe they're actually looking for the children of Skywalker instead to bring them into the fold, and he's got to go off world in order to lure them away because maybe he's a bigger trophy right now or something. And Luke is actually right now, it seems, and I'm imagining he will remain insignificant in this show. I think Luke's biggest role in this was simply to make Uncle Owen, I suppose, drive Obi-Wan away. Like Obi-Wan, Uncle Owen is saying, I don't want you here, stay away from us, leave the kid alone, and let us get on with our lives. And he even says that wonderful line where the boy must be trained. He goes, what, like the way you trained his father? And it's just wonderful. And he's like, yeah, actually, Obi-Wan, you need to get out of here. This really isn't appropriate anymore. You protected him for a few years, and the Empire has been out there now with Inquisitors for the last 10 years, I'm sure. Luke is fine, and he will be fine, I'm imagining. And I love that it's Leia who's in the firing line. I would never have guessed that. I just wouldn't have predicted that. And I was thinking today, Carrie Fisher would be proud of the actor playing this, Vivian Lyra Blair. She is incredible, and I know you described her as like being this very irritating child running around, and you're just like, no, you're gonna die if you keep doing this stuff. Like, you need to follow.
But so perfectly, though, yeah.
But she is exactly Leia. She is the way Obi-Wan is feeling about her now is the way Han Solo felt when they broke her out of jail in the Death Star. It's the exact same relationship, and she's gonna save his ass at some point. That she's going to do something that's going to win the day, and I'm just waiting for that, and it's going to be amazing.
She's also exactly Padme as well, in that it's a wonderful, very well written character. That, and it's explicitly said, he takes that moment and looks at her, and honestly, that I had brought a little tear to my eye that moment there, where he said, oh, you remind me of a friend, because it's all very well and good. You're looking at Ewan McGregor, and we know this is Leia, but then when he says that, you're actually looking at this man now taking care of the child of his best friend and his and dear friend as well. And there was something there, that callback, and not shying away from that, and embracing it and going, yeah, no, we're gonna make reference to this. And they did it at the opening of the whole thing with the best use of a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away that I have ever seen today. Yeah. Literally, this was a long time ago, and they show that stuff, and they just embrace those connections in a way that I think I think perhaps there are a lot of people that would have shied away from that and said, no, this should be its own show. But I think that this can stand alone as its own product, its own this, that, and the other. But they're not doing that. They're going, no, we acknowledge it has its roots in another thing, and we are showing you this other thing, and you have to have seen this other thing to get this. And I love that they're just doing that.
And it might as well have said, some wounds don't heal, or something like that. It was so, like, the meaning is so 100% clear. You're not thinking, oh, look, it's that thing that's always at the beginning of every movie. Your brain, what this type of show is going to be. Where this show is going right from the beginning, because they do the recap as well at the beginning, which is a really beautiful recap.
Yeah.
Where they, I don't know if you saw that one, but they, because I am thinking here from my screenwriter's point of view, like, what if you've never seen this stuff before? If this is your first introduction to Star Wars, can you follow this? Yes, you can, 100%.
Absolutely.
And they do this wonderful recap. They don't shy away from people like Jake Lloyd or anything like that in this, which is really great, because Jake Lloyd has, whether you like Phantom Menace or not, a really important role in establishing Darth Vader's character. And this is a guy who had his demons, later in life, and hopefully he's doing well now, but he's somebody you don't really expect is ever coming back to the Star Wars universe in some way, like even if it was to voice a cartoon of young Anakin or something, I don't know. but I love how they didn't shy away from including footage of him in this, because when you see young Luke playing pod racing on the roof of the hut later, you're thinking Jake Lloyd, and it looks like Jake Lloyd, you know. And I think that was really good. And they do it as well in his dreams, which doesn't quite make sense because he didn't see those moments. But never mind.
The force. It's
yeah,
the
force.
force.
Well, it's the
That's
force.
not how the force works. I can already see the gifs in comments.
I know, yeah. But I love that they're going way deep in and acknowledging that there is a serious history between all these different characters. You know, Natalie Portman was a teenager when she did Phantom Menace. And
she was. That's mad, yeah.
You know, that friendship that he's talking about when he says, you know, my friend, you remind me of my friend. That is a deep-rooted friendship. That is, you know, Padme's, you know, growth from girlhood into womanhood and so on. Like, you know, it's not just a few years there during a war. It's 10 years before the war even started. They knew each other and were working together and doing their thing. And there's just something incredible about what, yeah, you're right. I mean, she is Padme and Leia. And sometimes I'm seeing Leia and sometimes I'm seeing Padme, and it is
perfect. It's just a perfect.
Yeah.
What a well-pitched performance from someone so young. And
absolutely.
I think led perfectly by the writing. I think the right you almost couldn't perform it another way, but Deborah Chow as well has huge props, if nothing else, and there is so much more to talk about in these two episodes that works so well. But if nothing else, if that was the only thing to take from this, then fine, because it's so perfect and landed so well, and it's great to see.
And if we've got, I mean, before we even talk about the rest of the gifts of this show so far, and we're only 2 episodes in, if this is a show that is showing that actors from previous movies and TV shows can come into this, if Star Wars is a franchise that is going to keep bringing people from different stuff together, if Ewan McGregor can grow up through life as Obi-Wan Kenobi, and now, you know, 17 years later, whatever it is, return to that character again, it's entirely possible that we'll get an entire series based around Leia.
Yeah,
and it will be that that actor now as a teenager, or, you know, years from now. I mean, think about, if you've seen the trailer for Andor, you'll see the woman who plays Mon Mothma, is it?
Yep.
Who was in a deleted scene in Revenge of the Sith, was cast for continuity out of respect for, you know, that film. It could have been recast, but no, let's bring this woman back for Rogue One. And now she's playing a very pivotal role in Andor.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that for the person who was in a deleted scene and was only really available, imagine what you're going to do with somebody as talented as this child, you know. So I can't wait to see what they're going to do with Leia moving forward as a character, because this is a real signpost for, like, it's like they reincarnated Carrie Fisher or something in the most respectful way possible. And you know, when you think about Rogue One, people were up in arms because they felt that was disrespectful to Carrie Fisher, the CGI version. I know everyone has different opinions about that, but
sure. But
this is how you do it.
Yeah,
and I love it.
This is how you do it. I think the you know, we're not talking about Rogue One, but the you know, I have gone on record here a couple of times as, you know, having kind of weird feelings about deep fake faces, and, you know, the video game character formerly known as Luke Skywalker and these things. You know, it bothers me a little bit, and so I would always sooner see a recast of a character, or just not to use them at all. Frankly, I'd rather you just went off and did other stuff. But if you're doing this on a show like Obi-Wan Kenobi, who played by Ewan McGregor is already a recast, then great, crack on, do it, and find someone that great. So, you know, happy days from that point of view.
What do you think of the direction of the story? So, because as you said, you know, it's Leia's, you know, it's help us, Obi-Wan Kenobi, your only hope, which I loved. I mean, I know that's not the line that they use, but I was just waiting for them to say that.
Yeah, basically.
And it was just a great callback to old Star Wars, in a way that just didn't feel like we were just treading old ground, you know. And,
sure.
But I thought, well, this is going to be the journey, and the season is now going to be about rescuing Leia. And it feels like, I mean, I've no doubt she'll still be in a bit of trouble later, but it feels like the crux of that objective has been resolved now at the end of episode 2, and we've now gone a new direction. Like, how are you, I mean, you've talked about, liking that they're subverting it, but where do you think it's moving forward from here? Because it ends with the introduction of Anakin, which we will get to. But
which is
Oh, we can talk about it now. Actually, it's zombie Anakin, isn't it?
It's zombie Anakin. I mean, it's so great, and that it's that lovely that I think. See, it all intertwines for me for sure with your question there in terms of where I think this is going. I think it's a really smart move for them to give us the moment when Obi-Wan finds out that Anakin is still alive, to show us that. I thought that he would have known 10 years down the line. I assumed he would have known. But he clearly doesn't. Great, I'm all up for that. So now he has a choice, right? Because if his whole thing is he has a duty to Luke, he has a duty to Leia, he has to keep these two safe. Are they ever safe? Are they ever going to be safe with their father knocking around out there still? And you can see that moment on his face when he says Anakin, and the impression, that kind of smash cut, the impression being that Darth Vader heard him through the voice, through the Force. That he's suddenly aware of him connecting in a way. Again, Last Jedi connections there. The idea that now Obi-Wan is using the Force again. In a way that when he caught Leia, I feel like that's the first time he's used the Force in a while. He's opened himself back up to it, and now he can perhaps be sensed, as we saw through the Inquisitor sensing him and feeling his fear. So now, now perhaps Vader can find him in a more direct way. And so for me, there are kind of two directions here that this could go. This is a great Act 1, and I see exactly why they've given us Part 1 and Part 2 next to each other, because it's just like, yep, great, good, we're into the story now. So either I think Obi-Wan goes after Vader, or Vader goes after Obi-Wan. And I think that kind of has to be the way this goes in one way or another. And it's going to be cat and mouse buddy comedy not comedy, but like, Obi-Wan and Leia buddy comedy through the galaxy, trying to either find or get away from Vader. And I think, and then also presumably pursued by that wonderful Inquisitor whose name escapes me right now, but
Reva, is it?
Reva, that's it. Yeah, Reva, yeah. Reva. So great. And so I think we've interestingly kind of ended up getting to where I thought we'd go, but we've potentially, not that we know that yet, but we've got there through a different way, I suppose. I guess.
It does feel like they haven't promised you a particular type of adventure by saying, it feels like they were promising a particular type of adventure when they said, we need you to go find my daughter. But then they tick that box very quickly, because again, I mean, we know, and I'm assuming that Leia is still going to be on the adventure. It'll probably be something along the lines of, okay, this is where we go our separate ways. You're going to go with this envoy from Alderaan, to and they'll bring you back to your father, and then she sneaks away from them and sneaks onto his ship, and he's like, what are you doing? And then the doors are closing and it's leaving, it's too late, and now they're stuck together. It'll be I'm imagining it'll be something like that, where Leia has forced herself onto it, because she does, when she's up in the tree with her droid, which is going to sell 1,000
oh my god,
what am I talking about, 100 million fucking toys when come Christmas. The butterfly droid, whatever it is,
Lola, I think.
Lola. Yeah. Brilliant. I mean, they're so good. They're so good at designing these what will just be like a desk ornament for every Star Wars fan moving forward, isn't it?
I absolutely want one,
Pandora charms are going to be going to go crazy with this, I think.
Yeah, for
sure.
Right. Yeah.
That's my go-to for Christmas presents.
Pandora charms.
Yeah,
nice. Yeah.
But she's up there in the tree, and she's talking about, she's listing off the ships, which is, her knowledge of ships is going to come into play, I guarantee you. And she's clearly, like Luke, just longing to go off into and have those adventures. And I think as much as she might be fearful right now, I think when the opportunity comes for her to go home or to be safe, she'll choose to go with Obi-Wan.
Well, she already made that point, I think, didn't she? Because he said things will be back to normal. You'll be back in the palace or whatever. And she went, "Oh, great, normal."
Yeah,
and
yeah.
He says,
yeah.
now who's keeping secrets? And that lovely kind of, but I'd say lovely, kind of slightly on the nose, bit of foreshadowing potentially there, but still, yes. Carry on. Sorry.
No, I just think there's going to be, I think, a wonderful buddy adventure waiting for us now from the next episode onwards, and we'll see how Vader kind of pops into that.
He's arrived earlier than I thought. He's arrived earlier than I expected him to. Like we were talking about this the other day, and you sort of, you were saying, oh well, it might be, maybe we'll just get him. He's have a dual protagonist sort of situation or whatever it was. And I didn't think. Again, I think it's this thing where I don't expect TV shows to lean into their history as like when it comes to stuff like this, because perhaps with experiences of things like Star Trek, actually, they don't lean into it in the way that these guys are doing it, and the way that Star Wars tends to do this. So maybe that was one of the things there. But yeah, Vader has appeared earlier than I expected him to, and now he's been introduced. I would expect that we will see him. I expect we'll see him next episode. I expect we'll see him expanded upon. Yeah.
I think he'll be the first thing we see in the next episode. I think first scene of next episode will be the kind of the donning of the armor.
The back to tank trains away.
Yeah. It'll be the update of what's happened on this planet, cyberpunk planet, whatever it is. So you mentioned his exhaustion. To me, the exhaustion comes from a few points. The first is obviously the backbreaking labor that he's doing every day. And while it might feel like he's just cutting meat or whatever, it feels to me like he's doing a lot more out in the heat and everything, and it's wearing him down. It also doesn't feel like this is regular employment because secure employment or whatever that might look like in this job, because he collects his pay at the end of every day. And that suggests to me the kind of thing where it's almost like, you're just, it's just people lining up hoping that there'll be work every day, and it's like, okay, I need 10 people today. I need 12 people, okay, you were good yesterday, come back, that kind of thing. And there's a moment where the guy in front of him is collecting his pay and he's like, God, only half this time. Come on, man, I've got a wife, I've got a family to feed. And he's kind of beaten down. And my initial reaction was Obi-Wan would give him his pay. And then you cut to him. You cut to him on the let's say the train, let's say, so to speak, back into town. The bus back into town. When they're all sitting next to each other. And I assume, and he kind of does this subtle kind of look over to the guy next to him, and then looks back down again. And I thought, is he going to give him the pay? No, he doesn't. And I thought, this is not the same. This is the Obi-Wan Kenobi ate worms with Anakin and bugs while they were in the middle of a battle once in one of the Clone Wars cartoons. This guy should be okay with that, and he's not. He's burned out a little bit. There's something has happened to him a little bit here. And when you also look at when he gets home, there's the kind of like the head of the R2 droid buried in the sand sticks its head up, and it's and there's a little blue light on it, and then it goes back down again. And I'm thinking, okay, whatever. That's just his droid, I guess. And then when he comes back later, it pops up again. This time it's red. And I'm like, it wasn't red last time. And then Bail Organa's waiting inside. And I'm thinking, this is a guy who is always looking over his shoulder. Like, yeah, you feel like, okay, every so often you'll see a ship fly overhead and you might think, oh, I hope that's not an Inquisitor. But no. This is a guy who is constantly, he will not leave his home without setting alarms in place. And his home is a cave, I guess.
It's a cave. Yeah.
You really feel the exhaustion. Not to mention the fact he doesn't get sleep because he's always having PTSD dreams of the Clone Wars. And then he's totally, it does feel to me like he's lost his faith, because he's sitting there praying to Qui-Gon, Qui-Gon, where are you? That's what people say to God when they've lost their faith. You know, it's or when they're in the midst of losing their faith. You know, or when their faith is at a crisis. It's like, God, where are you? Why aren't you answering my prayers? And obviously Qui-Gon's going to show up at some point. I mean, it's obviously going to happen. They're signposting this, you know, very heavily because again, in episode 2, he's like, Qui-Gon, now would be a good time, you know, and it's going to happen. But this is so clearly a man, you know, who's lost his faith or whose fate is really at a crisis point. And I just would never in a million years have guessed that the character would be going that way. I assumed this is the guy who'll give his share of his paycheck to the man to feed his family. Nope.
Yeah. This is the Last Jedi again. This is another connection to the Last Jedi. It's that same thing of you would never expect Luke to be driven by very much the same thing, failure. Driven by failure to that kind of existence, to that kind of disconnection.
I had a huge problem in The Last Jedi where he threw his lightsaber over a head. And the reason I didn't like that is because even if he has no remorse, it undermined the really powerful ending of Force Awakens. There's a really powerful ending here where there's like almost like a bridge being built here between the old and the young. And the past and the future, you know, that kind of thing. And it was just completely undermined. It was literally like they wanted to go back and re-edit Force Awakens, put some comedic music at the end or something. You know, it just didn't. It's not the same. You stitch those two films together, and they're not the same scene anymore. And I really didn't like that. But this is completely, you know, because it's its own show, it can afford to be a departure from what we expect Kenobi to be, and it will not feel like it's there's a broken that we're jamming two puzzle pieces together that don't fit, you know.
No, definitely not. I think it's done very well, and I think that the PTSD stuff is the thing that really grabs me about this story. Is kind of the reason I want to see this story is how do you move on, or how do you carry on in the face of that great a failure and that great a thing. And I'm hopeful that we get more. I'm sure we'll get more, but I'm hopeful that we get some more that touched on in a deeper way. I enjoyed. It's an all-encompassing performance thing, and I think they did well to avoid the trappings of a PTSD story, because it's very easy to just go, you know, flashbacks, and that's not what post-traumatic stress disorder is. There's a bunch of other stuff, and part of that kind of consistent mental health problem that just doesn't go away is being that tired and being that run down and losing faith in all of these elements, like you've just been saying. And I think that it informs the performance in a really visceral and essential way. And you feel it
when he goes to save Leia from falling.
It's an effort, isn't it? It's a massive effort.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of in Wolverine, when Wolverine's claws come out and he's in pain. And Jean Grey says, "Does it hurt?" And he says, "Every time." And I remember watching that when I was a kid, whenever the first X-Men came out, and she asked that question, and it blew my mind. I never thought, I was such a huge X-Men fan growing up, and I never thought that his claws would hurt when they tear through his skin. And it was such a lovely little line. And I thought, I was thinking of that here. I was like, does it hurt to use the Force? Because it kind of feels like it's hurting him right now.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like, well, maybe it feels like he's getting a few gray hairs in his beard doing this, you know?
Yeah. Is that taking a toll? Is that because he hasn't used it for so long? Is this, you know, again, again to draw a connection, is that Luke doesn't use it for a long time and he does a thing and he dies? Is that a thing? If you get out of practice, does it take it out of you in that way? But also, it's interesting that you mentioned the X-Men there and Wolverine. There's another comparison. Logan is another kind of old character, past his prime and everything. And that moment where he's, you know, he can't. That's that amazing moment where he's trying to get his claws all the way out because he can't get them out because he's too old. Oh God, I love that bit. But it's so I'm laughing because of the connotations, not because of the moment. It's a very, very upsetting moment, obviously. But again, it's that same thing. It's the trying to pull the claws out of the way to get back to it. It's trying to catch her. That for prime Obi-Wan is easy. It's just, there you go.
He'd be doing that while fending off General Grievous.
Yeah.
Like
he would.
Yeah.
Of course he would. And he wouldn't, in fact, he probably wouldn't have even done that. He would have jumped down and caught her. And then winked at the camera. Because and I think that's the thing, is that Ewan McGregor's performance in the prequels and then subsequent styling of Obi-Wan in Clone Wars is so comedic and has such a twinkle. And I think that's the essence of this series so far, is that twinkle has gone. And that man isn't there anymore. This is a different person.
You know how... Go on, sorry.
Yeah, but then by the time we get to Alec Guinness in the character, the twinkle's back. So something happens... But in this amount of time, and presumably at some point in this series, where he finds his faith again, presumably, because, I mean, by the time we get to Alec Guinness, he's in his very unsubtle Jedi robes again and things like that. So that's got to be kind of the end point of this, or getting towards that when we get to the end.
You know who I think will be responsible? I think Leia will be responsible for that.
Yeah.
It'll motivate him to go and rescue. Like, we've got to go to Alderaan.
Yeah,
like
we gotta go.
Anything for this person. You mentioned, he's a different character. The biggest evidence for me is he's using a blaster, the uncivilized weapon.
Uncivilized,
and he's using it. And I'm like, why are you using a blaster? Why aren't you using your lightsaber? And I'm like, of course, the lightsaber basically is a trigger for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
The lightsaber is just the last resort, and also he may not even be able to use it anymore, like to that same level. We know how he will use it. This is a guy who, when he used his lightsaber in A New Hope, he lost the fight. He knew he wasn't going to win this fight. He knew there was nothing to be gained from winning the fight. And he in some ways throws in the towel, so to speak. But I know it's for a greater good. But it's. I just think this is a different person. This is a person who needs to get back into his training, Okay, I want to talk about the Inquisitors very quickly.
Yeah.
Moses Ingram's Reva, brilliant watching her hopping around. You talked about Ewan McGregor force jumping around the place. She's doing amazing force jumping.
She is force jumping around the place.
And there's one or two moments that's very Phantom Menace levels of choreography, where it's like, you didn't need to do a backflip there. You could just run.
Yeah, she dives off the thing, doesn't she? You could have just stepped.
Yeah. But it's great. It's wonderful. And it's showing, and it's setting up just how dangerous she is going to be. I was convinced from watching the trailers, and I said this in my analysis initially, that she will turn on the Grand Inquisitor and be a hero, be a savior. That she will, that she was as the Grand, or I think Obi-Wan explains, the Inquisitors were young Jedi who turned their back on the Order and joined the Sith. And so I had this idea that maybe she, like Finn, isn't totally like convinced about this life and this calling and does the right thing in the end. I don't think that's going to happen now because of the death of the Grand Inquisitor. And it seems like she's got a real allegiance to Darth Vader here, and she's doing this almost as a gift for Vader. What do you think about killing the Grand Inquisitor too soon? I say too soon because I'm giving away.
That's what you think. Yeah.
But what do you think about that? What do you think about that?
I think it's a shame. I think it's a shame to see him go. I don't think it was. Well, we don't have the full picture yet, so to say it's not necessary would be wrong. But it kind of feels.
Were you disappointed? Were you disappointed to see him written?
Yeah, a little bit. I wanted to see the Grand Inquisitor go toe to toe with someone, Obi-Wan preferably. I wanted to see that confrontation. I wanted to see. And he's great. He's a great kind of speech maker as well. I love a speech maker. I love a villainous speech maker. And that's almost an Indiana Jones moment, isn't it? When he's doing this big long speech and she just throws the knife and he goes, "It's him." It's that like lovely reference. Another Lucasfilm property.
I think that's the evidence that she's going to kill him as well, because he's not good enough. And actually, when he comes in and interrupts her hunt for Obi-Wan in that room, where he's toying with switching on the lightsaber, she reveals about Anakin and all that. I just thought, you idiot! Why aren't you working with her? Like he's right there. He's in the
exactly,
room. Why aren't you guys just cornering him? Like,
I mean, he deserves to die.
Yeah,
he's an idiot. He's clearly inept. He's clearly like sexist or whatever's going on. Whatever's going on there. The guy's an idiot. He deserves what comes to him. But you know what? Actually, speaking of the twinkle, there was a little moment there where Obi-Wan watches him get killed, and he like backs away from the thing. And goes, ooh. It's almost like it's like a little moment of like, ooh, oh my, and just a little flash in there, in the midst, whatever. Anyway, but so I think he deserves his death. It was a good death. I think it was worthwhile. I think it's a shame it happened so early, but again, I think that's probably the misdirection. Again,
I think I would like to have seen him die at the hands of Vader. I think it would have, or maybe not punishment, but just I think I would have preferred you failed me. Like, you do the whole thing where and maybe it's cliche, maybe that's why they're not doing it, but you do the thing, I don't know, I feel like I love a good I'm sorry I failed you, my lord, etc., and then it's the commanding officer gets killed instead. You know, it's like, well, you were too young to be put in the field. He's the one that should take responsibility, not you. That kind of thing. And I would imagine Emperor Palpatine punishing the Grand Inquisitor for bringing Reva out into the field when she's not ready yet, or something. Or it's, well, you're supposed to keep them all in check. It's your fault, you know, something like that. And he's deflecting. He's saying, oh, she's breaking all the rules.
Yeah.
She's a rogue cannon.
What do you think? What's her deal? What's her deal? Because she seems to be really into what do you think her motivation is for bringing Obi-Wan to Vader? What is she doing?
I believe this is all tied to the very first scene of the show. The flashback of the Clone Wars, of the Order 66.
Okay. Yeah.
We see a group of children running away. We see the Jedi falling, the Jedi Protector falling. And what's the famous scene of the younglings in Revenge of the Sith? It's Anakin coming in, turning on the lightsaber, and all the kids kind of flinching. And I am betting one of the kids in that shot, in that scene, is Reva. And she was either taken in by Anakin or she was failed by Obi-Wan.
Interesting.
And you link it back to Order 66. You link it back to that night when all her friends, all her the people she cared about were just slaughtered. Because it's a weird scene to put in without any meaning, without any characters, so to speak. They're just extras, for lack of a better word. I doubt any of the people in that had names in the show. Maybe they did. Maybe a Star Wars expert will.
Maybe one of them's Reva. Yeah. But that's the thing, you know.
But I think that's what's happening here, is that kind of otherwise pointless scene, as great as it is,
and it is great.
It doesn't add anything that we couldn't have learned through a little bit of backstory or something like that.
Yeah, because it's not even like it. It's not even like it. It's not even a moment where he sort of wakes up and goes, and he's having a dream about it or something like that. You know, he's seen something through the Force. It is just.
It's very much, and there is the voice. You hear a voice saying, "Leave her, let's go," or something like that.
Yeah.
And run, you know. So you do hear a voice. There, like, an actor got paid to deliver a line. A line was written.
What do we do now? We run.
Yeah,
I think
that's the line. Yeah, you know, somebody put thought into that line, and you don't necessarily do that if it's meant to be just a throwaway piece of context.
Yeah, no, and
it's a very strange scene to have as a throwaway piece of context. Like, if you were going to just do something that just showed Order 66 happening, you could have done something really interesting where, you know, you had these people hiding, and in the distance, you know, you see a flash of Grogu being carried away to safety by somebody, and then over in the corner you see that the man in the black cloak walking through with his blue lightsaber, whatever color it was, I can't remember. Like, you just very cleverly show us the pieces of the puzzle. And then you could have Reva just kind of snap open, and then you know, the Grand Inquisitor's like, okay, let's get off the ship or something, you know, and now we're going to do our whole speech in the canteen. But the fact that they've been elusive about what that scene refers to outside of just Order 66, I think means this is going to be the moment. We're going to see another side to that scene later on, and I'll be very disappointed if we don't.
I think it's almost certain we do. It's a good theory. I like that because I wasn't sure. I feel like I was looking at it very much on a surface level of, just kind of Sith worship and, I just want to do well and you're in my way. It's a, just an ambition kind of thing. But to link it more deeply into that would be really interesting, I think. I reckon she's probably trying to be his apprentice, and I reckon she ends up being killed by him at the end in some kind of you're nothing. And all of this sort of, all of this happens, or if she's not killed, she's thrown aside, because there are only two, and there can only be two Sith lords, Sith assassins, inquisitors, whatever you want to call them, knocking around fine, because that's what Maul is. Maul also knocking around at the moment still. And that whole thread from Solo as well with the crime empire and things like that. There's all stuff to be there. Can't really have. I suppose we could. I'm trying. I mean, could you have Obi-Wan and Darth Maul meet without messing up the Rebels?
I think it would mess up the Rebels thing. I think it would. I've thought about that, and there was a fan theory going around that that was the big lightsaber fight is between it's between Vader and Maul.
Oh, interesting. That would work. That would be all right.
That it's Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan Kenobi witnesses the fight between Maul. Like, the idea was that Maul gets. I think the theory was, one of the theories going around was that Maul kind of forces himself into their struggle somehow or for some reason, and it ends up being a showdown that he barely escapes from.
Yeah.
And it's what allows Ewan McGregor to escape, but we never get. But look, we are going to have to get this showdown. We are going to have to get this fight. They've shown us, like, them training. They've shown us. Ewan McGregor has said it. Like, it'll be great to dust off the lightsabers again. I don't think you can do flashbacks when our first image of Hayden Christensen now is Zombie Vader, which I'm going to keep saying, just because he looks. He looks messed up.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does.
He didn't look as... You kind of believed he would recover in Star Wars kind of fantasy. You kind of believed he could recover from Revenge of the Sith. But this is serious. I mean, it was serious in Revenge of the Sith, but this is other levels. I mean...
Yeah. The guy is just mutilated. Like, there is just
he must be in. The pain he must be in.
Yeah.
It's incredible what depth that one little shot has just given to Vader. I mean, it's like you've just written an entire 300-page volume now about Vader as a character just from that one shot.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And just added it to the pile of great stuff already about Vader. It speaks volumes about where he's at in his frame of mind.
It does.
He just looks in pain, and all we saw was a glimpse of him opening his eyes.
Do you think we're going to get some more Back to Tank flashbacks? We're going to revisit this from
maybe
Boba Fett?
Yeah, maybe. Speaking of Boba Fett.
Oh, yes. Yeah. There he is.
What's the actor's name? I forgot the actor's name.
I also can't remember that.
I feel really bad. I'm not leaving here until
that's the right thing to do. That's the right thing to do.
Tamora Morrison.
It's on the
Tamora Morrison. Fantastic actor. Brad called it. We could see Tamora Morrison in Clone Trooper guys as one of the famous troopers from the past.
Yeah. Well done, Brad.
And my God, I geeked out so much. I am a fan of the Book of Boba Fett. I don't think it's their best work, but I love the fact that it exists, and I will enjoy binge watching it far more than I enjoyed waiting week by week.
Yeah.
I love it as a
capture of the Mandalorian.
Yeah, it's just a puzzle piece to get to Mandalorian 3, and I'm happy with that it exists. I love that it exists. But I could just watch Tamora Morrison all day long.
Absolutely, amazing. Yeah.
To see him here, to see him here, he's with the beard and everything, and he holds out his helmet upside down, spare change. It's heartbreaking. And I know he's just playing a nameless clone trooper in this, but there was something really profound. Obi-Wan looking at him, and it's almost like I feel like it's almost like he's, I don't know, a person who experienced a traumatic, a person who was attacked, let's say, maybe a person who was held at gunpoint years ago or something like that in a robbery or something, and then they've just bumped into their attacker, or their captor years later, and they don't even realize. Like, the captor looks at them and doesn't even realize who it is. It's just this fear. You could almost see this kind of cold sweat breaking out. You see that sometimes in movies, and it's pretty powerful stuff. And to me,
it's such a layered moment. It's such a layered moment, because you have the recognition of course, the trauma, of course, the trigger, but also he served with them, he commanded them, and you watch the Clone Wars, he befriended them. He was a great supporter of the clones as individuals, and so what a thing to be confronted by your past, and the reason your life has turned out the way it is looking at you, asking you for change, but you also want to help because you're a Jedi, and also that it's not really we don't know that he doesn't know he knows it's not their fault, but man, it's just but that little moment was great.
He that moment is the standout moment for me in that episode. Vader is cool, all that, but that's not going to be that significant later when we see Vader in full gear. What I mean? Like, that's just a taster. But this to me was the standout moment in the episode, because this is about Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's about his trauma. It's about his trying to move forward in his life in some way, or just trying to survive. And here is this guy who betrayed his kind and probably had a hand in slaughtering some of his kind, and he too has been left to the ashes, and I just love it. There's so much talk about gutters, and there's so much talk about rats, and there's so much talk about sewers and all that kind of stuff in this episode. And the clone troopers that you see at the beginning, the people slaughtering the children and the Jedi, and now he's in the gutter, and it's just it speaks so much. It's dark says stuff. So much.
It's dark stuff, and you want reflections on certainly American society. You want to look for some real life allegory there. It's in spades. There's a lot going on there.
Before we wrap up, there's one great lesson in screenwriting in episode 1, right at the beginning, and it's when the Grand Inquisitor is doing his little speech in the cantina, where he's talking about Jedi reveal themselves. Jedi, we don't hunt Jedi. Jedi hunt themselves. Beautiful line, makes sense later on when but he's talking about how the Jedi can't help but reveal themselves. And as he's saying it, the camera kind of pans slightly over to the wall, and you see lightsaber marks on the wall. And it is masterful. It's just that great coming together of visual storytelling and dialogue-driven storytelling to give the audience something to do. It's like if 2 + 2 = 4, it's Grand Inquisitor just said 2, the wall has the word 2 written on it, and now the audience is thinking 4. That's what is happening in that moment. It is brilliant screenwriting, and it sets the tone right away, right off the bat, for just the power, and even the idea of a long time ago having a double meaning. There is just exceptional storytelling going on in this, and exceptional screenwriting right from the get-go. Okay, 2 little nagging points, because we've been so glowing of this. Leia can really outsmart people, can't she? When she's in the woods being chased by Flea and co, she isn't running that fast, and they are not able to catch her, and it is ridiculous.
Yeah, there is there's a moment where
it happens again then with Obi-Wan in the city.
There's a moment where one of the guys, like, there's 2 of them, and they're right behind her. They're literally like where my lamp is, and this guy then just goes, I'm going to go over here. And he just disappears up the bank, and then comes around later. He's like, aha, oh no, a branch.
Yeah, there's a big branch, and she runs under it, and he just runs into it, and it's like, you could see it, surely.
Yeah, you're an adult, you're not an idiot. Like,
and the worst thing about it is there's no point to the scene, because all you had to do was just have her, she just disappears. It's like, did she come back? No, she never came back. I thought she was with you. I thought she was with, and you just have this moment where it's like, oh crap, the alarm bells are out. We run out looking for her. Where is she? And then you see maybe a toy, I don't know, the droid or something, on the ground, and then it's she's gone.
Or if you want to show a chase, then that's fine, but just catch her. Just catch her straight away.
Just catch her straight away.
I think it's so much more impactful to catch her straight away. How menacing do you want to be? You've got these 3 grown adults chasing a child and catching her straight away, because that's more frightening than ducking and diving under branches.
Yeah.
Then I'm with you on that.
I understood why Obi-Wan couldn't really chase her that fast, because he's trying to. I do think that what's brilliant about when he's chasing after Leia is he's doing his absolute best not to draw attention to himself, because everybody's got this John Wick style hunt for it's very John Wick. Everybody's out looking for Obi-Wan, and he's got to kind of play it cool. But this brings me to my second problem. Okay. And I've always had a problem with this in Star Wars. I can put it behind me because it looks cool, but it's kind of becoming a bit of a problem here. Obi-Wan Kenobi wearing the brown cloak in A New Hope, it makes sense because he's out in the desert and he's like the Sand People, or he's like the Jawas. It's just the clothing of the people, and that, it's just different variations of that type of brown kind of camouflage cloak, right? He's also trying to hide. He's trying to stay away. He's not trying to draw attention to himself. The idea that is the robe of a Jedi at the height of their power is also fine, because it has a kind of a religious kind of connotation to it. It almost looks like they're monks or brothers in a holy order. But you can't have both, because it's like, it's like a soldier trying to blend in, but wearing his uniform, like a very clear American uniform, British uniform or something. It doesn't make sense. This is the uniform of a soldier in this war, and he's just wearing it, and it's the same logic could be applied to a clone trooper trying to blend in. Yeah. So he's just going to wear his uniform. It makes no sense.
I think I can logic through that though. Yeah.
But yeah, I can get by it, right? I can just put it behind me, because it's Tatooine, and maybe who the hell's coming to Tatooine, I guess,
By the time Obi-Wan's Alec Guinness, people are talking about Jedi like they're myths, and they don't exist.
Yeah.
And so the whole idea of Jedi having a specific attire, also, if you want to tack it onto the end of this series, it demonstrates that he has found his faith again, and he's now back with the Force. So I guess I can see the reason for him not wearing it in this, and then ending up being Alec Guinness wearing.
But if you're only 10 years away from 10 years off of Order 66, and there are Inquisitors terrorizing planets, we won't even get into the idea of them coming to a small village in Tatooine and saying, I know he's on this planet. Imagine somebody going to London and saying, I know he's in the Amazon somewhere.
Exactly.
It's like, or not even London, just a small town in Britain or something.
This is a science fiction problem, though, isn't it? They do everything. Yeah. It happens in everything. The idea of like planets as towns. And like, anyway, sorry.
But you've got Obi-Wan wearing the Jedi uniform, doing his absolute, but everything else is about him saying, put that lightsaber away, man. What are you trying to do? Get us all killed? And like when he's
not wearing it in this though. That's not the Jedi uniform in this.
No, but he's wearing the cloak with the hood, and he's got his lightsaber on it. I mean, it's so similar to A New Hope.
It's slightly different color.
Is it? I mean, come on. It looks pretty. I mean, you look at the poster for Obi-Wan Kenobi and tell me that's not the same kind of general outfit.
It's a little bit nichely different. It's just slightly
different. He should be wearing.
He's changed his hair. He's got a bigger beard. No one's going to know who he is.
He's the most wanted man in the galaxy. And he's wearing just the brown garb, whatever. don't do that.
Yeah,
I don't
I know. They've left. It's a difficult one though, because of that exact point. They have to have him end up being Alec Guinness, even though it's ridiculous that he would ever be wearing it. So they change it a little bit. So it's like, and there are other people.
I will
Owens
say this.
is quite similar.
Yeah, I will say that that's the point. That's the thing that saves it for me is, everybody in that first kind of quarter of that episode seems to be wearing a similar outfit.
Yeah.
So he is blending in, no question.
Yeah.
But it's just how convenient that's what the Jedi also wore. You know, I don't know.
It's Jedi chic, I believe they call it.
Yeah, it's
I'm pretty sure that's
Jedi chic.
Jedi
anyway,
chic,
I think, but you know what? How like I can look past all of that because I just had,
of course,
those two minor issues and I'm only bringing them up because we have to be critical of something.
Of course, yeah.
It is.
I have my own in the Obi-Wan encountering Leia before A New Hope, and the fact that she presumably is going to spend quite a lot of time with him, and has already spent a significant amount of time, and he has affected her life in some way. And yet, when she speaks to him via the hologram, she says, "You served with my father in the Clone Wars." Remember that time you came to save me, and we hung out for ages and ran away from Darth Vader and got into all kinds of things. Yeah,
I didn't think about that.
How you doing, bro? You know,
I didn't think about that. I think I love the idea that he's working with Leia, that they will form a bond, and that when she says Obi-Wan Kenobi's here, it's like on the Death Star. Yeah, I'm here with Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan, you know, it's like she's my, you know, my hero. Friend. Yeah, my childhood friend is back. You know, and
they don't ever meet on the Death Star, do they? He's killed before they get the chance to cross paths.
Yeah,
that is right, isn't it?
I think so. And when she tries to comfort Luke on the Millennium Falcon after they got away, I think that has a lot more weight to it because she probably would have known Obi-Wan better than anybody then at that point, or would have had an insight. Like the only other person that would have known Obi-Wan to that degree would have been Anakin, if they're going to have this kind of long-term adventure or long-term kind of friendship.
Yeah, existing still alive people knocking around, then
or this implied kind of respect for each other or something. I don't know.
Which does make it quite funny that Luke's all sad and she's like, "Oh, it's okay, don't worry about it."
There is,
you know,
the more Star Wars goes on, it doesn't matter. But I do think the more this franchise goes on, the more they are going to have to just accept that the storytelling in the original trilogy was never that amazing. You know, there's a lot of clumsiness in it. There's a lot of, it only took 10 X-Wings to destroy an entire moon-sized space station with, you know, God knows how much defense systems and stuff like that. Oh, look, you know, here's the brother and sister kissing in Empire. I know it's just a peck, but like, you know, it's still,
it's not a peck.
Yeah, no, it's not actually. No, what am I doing? Actually, no, it's not actually. You're right. It's a full-on attempt to make Han Solo jealous. Yeah. It's like, but
gross.
There is a clumsiness to a lot of this stuff.
Yeah,
the idea of the whole third act of Return of the Jedi being devoted to the sexualization of the only woman in the whole series and the rescue of a character who should have died in the previous one and has zero impact on the rest of the movie. It's not, you know. Like, there's just a weird clumsiness to that trilogy. And as beloved as they are, I think Lucasfilm is able to say, or needs to start making some mature decisions about whether, and maybe they are, and maybe this kind of stuff is going to go against the continuity a little bit, but for the overall greater good of the franchise, which means, if it means stepping over the original trilogy to create a better set of stories, let's do it.
I mean, this isn't Marvel. You know, this isn't. You want to talk about long form cinematic universal storytelling. It's not Marvel. They didn't start with one thing with a view to go do some more stuff. They started with one trilogy. They then did another trilogy to feed into that, and then a whole new set of people came in and started doing other stuff with it. So there are bound to be ways and things that don't quite work. And like you say, I don't think it matters, you know.
No,
because if it doesn't matter. But I do also think that at some point soon, Star Wars needs to start pressing forward again, because they did that with the sequel trilogy. Whatever you think of that, they did it with the sequel trilogy, and we need to start exploring the future of this again, rather than kind of continuing to slot in stuff here and there,
pushing forward while at the same time slavishly following all the tropes and conventions of the past, which is what they did. I'm not saying that's what they should do. I'm saying that's what they did with the new trilogy. I mean, each movie felt like a mirror image of a movie we saw before.
Absolutely.
I do feel the difference between the Star Wars franchise now and the Marvel franchise is you can't pick and choose your stories in Marvel. They're all connected and building towards something. Maybe Moon Knight is the exception, but I guarantee Moon Knight's going to pop into something later on. With Star Wars, I do feel like you can just watch your prequels, and that can be your story, and you can just watch the Clone Wars, and that can be your story, and you can just watch the original trilogy or the new trilogy. And I feel like if they are stepping over, you served my father in the Clone Wars, or Vader sensing something he hasn't sensed since, which clearly implied and clearly referred to Mustafar, that's okay, because I think they're expecting a lot of audiences aren't caring about the original trilogy as much. I think there's an arrogance in assuming particularly new Star Wars fans actually care at all about the journey of Luke Skywalker. I don't know if they care as much. I think new Star Wars fans are going to be far more interested in what this show has or that show has. I don't know.
I don't know. I think there's a balance to be drawn there, between respecting the old and pushing forward with the new, because of course there is. It's a balance in everything. But I think from what I've seen so far of this, it feels like they're respecting that. I don't care really about the fact that Leia didn't say.
I don't care, and
it doesn't matter. And there may be a good reason for it as well. It might well be that actually this is something that she can never talk about again. There might be this thing at the end of it where she is sworn to secrecy, and they both have to agree that we never talk about it because they discovered something.
And to their credit,
we don't know yet.
To their credit, Star Wars is really good at doing that. They're really good at putting in a line of dialogue that just says, "Oh, I get it."
I see.
Wipe that droid's memory. Speaking of which, C-3PO popped up.
Yeah, nice to see him. That's always fun.
Okay, I feel like some of this conversation is actually, we really should let the show end before we actually start talking about how it fits in. But I do definitely think there's a conversation to be had afterwards about how all of this has affected, for better or worse, other stuff to come later. I definitely think that's a conversation to be had. For now,
see how right we were as well.
Yeah. For now, I can't wait I'm counting days until next episode. I think I'm going to be watching Rebels or something in the meantime just to time me over. I'm so excited to see where this show goes. We'll leave it there, Marcus, and thanks very much. Thanks very much for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week with another analysis of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Until then, check out all our other videos. You can check out our trailer analysis as well if you want to see what kind of ideas we were coming up with initially and versus kind of how they stand now. We've got loads of Star Wars and Marvel stuff up there as well. Check it all out. Hit us up on social media. Links are in the description. Follow us on TikTok. Hit us up at thescriptdepartment.net as well to see what we're up to, and leave a comment below what you thought of Obi-Wan. Thanks very much.